intro today.
You're in the middle? You're in the middle?
Yeah.
So I need you to, I want to move down a little so I can, there we go.
We just wanted to watch you try to squish into that space. We thought that.
How's
You
the
ready?
other
I'm
camera?
pressing
Are we already
start.
live on this one?
We're live on this one.
Perfect.
Ready?
Hi, YouTube.
Checking connection. You're now live.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Behind the Sign Canada. Jess, you want to come join in?
Yeah, hold on. I'm just making sure that it's,
Oh, we're super crooked.
this is crooked on Instagram?
Instagram.
Is that better?
I don't know yet. Well, I'll tell you in a sec. Coming. Yep,
Better?
much better.
Much
All
better.
right. Less technical glitches today.
Yeah, so we're working on our volume. As you know, we
I have my shoes on.
Okay, so what we're trying to do today is work on our volume. We've got a couple microphones, so we're hoping that improves the sound. We're in a different location as well today, so that's hopefully going to help with a bit of the echo.
Yeah.
But definitely love your feedback that we've been getting from anyone. So if you have any more, let us know how we did today.
We're going to figure this out.
We will. We are going to be pros. We started engaging a few pros to see what we can do to up our quality here. So we are Behind the Sign Canada. I'm Sarah DeBoer. We've got Jessica Menard and Jacqueline Clement, local realtors to the Dufferin County area. We've started doing a 3-part mini-series of first-time home buyers, what it is that it takes to get into the market. So our first one that we did last month was all about financing, what you need to do to get your finances in place, get pre-approved, and start into the real estate journey. Now we're going to assume today that we are good to go. We've got all of our financing in place. We're pre-approved, and we're going to walk you through that steps and give you all the ins and outs, the nitty-gritty, and walk you through the process of getting started.
The fun stuff.
The fun stuff.
Well, of course, we find this to be the funnest part.
Yes.
Right.
It's supposed to be the funnest part, and but
I mean, spending
Jessica's
time with
part of
us.
it, yeah. Jessica's part, the negotiations and offers, like that's a little stressful, but it is a super fun time. So again, like Sarah said, for all the first-time buyers out there, if we're assuming that you've done part one, you've got your pre-approval, moving forward, next would be to connect with a real estate agent if you haven't already. A couple of key points here about choosing the right realtor would be very similar to choosing the right broker and lender. You spend a lot of time with us in certain circumstances and markets.
Yep.
So you want to make sure, of course, again, we always push somebody local to where you're buying.
Right.
There's a lot more than just the house and the land it sits on,
Yes.
right?
So it's things that are happening in the town, certain restrictions in the town. Like a simple thing that you get in Shelburne, like you can only, if you're on the landlord side of things, you can only keep your water in the owner's name. You can't transfer it. There's little things in areas that you might not know about.
What kind of expanding is happening? What kind of new construction?
Yeah.
Like Shelburne, sorry, Shelburne, I love you, but half the town smells like awful, dirty sewage water.
So Orangeville.
You want to make sure that you have someone that's going to be able to educate you on those things, and you decide if it's still the right spot for you or not.
Yep.
On that note, I also wanted to say as well, in terms of a local realtor, that realtor having relationships with other realtors can go a long way
Yes.
as well.
Can you touch on why?
Well, I think it's just there's a big part of like building rapport, and you're sitting across from the negotiating table, and the negotiations go a lot easier when you already know that person. You know their background, you know their experience, there's common ground there, as opposed to an outside agent. Not to say that they're not doing the right job for you, but it
Trust
makes
factor.
things a lot easier, and there's a trust factor there, and it's
As a realtor, we're vetting our clients. We're going through and making sure their financing is in place and all of the XYZs are there, and we're not going to just present something and then ghost you. So I think that's where a big trust factor comes in.
I
Yeah.
think it's also like the smoothness and stress level of the transaction
Yes.
too. This just happened on a deal. We got a conditional offer in. I was representing the buyer with a local agent in Orangeville, and they ended up coming back to us because they were like, you know what? The more I talked to my clients about it, the more they thought about who other buyers might be. They're like, this has been their home since 1972.
Yeah.
It's important to them that, this is a smooth transaction.
Mhm.
They're very stressed about it. And he knew me and he knew the way I did business and was like, you know what, I think this is going to be the best fit.
Right.
And you're bringing local clients. So that did have a lot of weight in our own.
Yeah.
I think even simply going back to like the whole letter thing, it's sometimes just comes down to that, like touching on the emotional side of things, because this is an emotional transaction. There are a lot of things coming into play here. It's not just black and white.
Yep. So other things you're looking for would be personality. Like, do you connect with this person? Do you feel comfortable with this person?
Yeah.
Again, when you're picking a realtor, just like a broker, we do need to know a lot about you.
Yeah.
And we get to know a lot about you. We talk all hours of the day when we're negotiating. So you want to make sure it's someone that you feel comfortable calling or texting, and they don't make you feel like you're bothering them.
Right.
Yeah,
There
you should
are
never
those.
feel like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
I get that a lot from people. I don't want to bother my agent, but that's our job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And finances, you're disclosing a lot of information about yourselves, what you can afford, what you can't afford. Sorry.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very personable
Yeah.
for sure.
100%. So we talked about trust. We talked about getting someone local. We all think that it's important to interview multiple agents. We work for you. So some agents don't do this whole interview thing, but if you were to call us up and say, hey, just be honest. Listen, I'm looking for a realtor. I want to meet with a couple different people and see who knows the area best and who we click with best. I do think it's important to be upfront though, but don't sign anything until you're sure of who you want to work with.
And this is a big thing that we've talked about many times, because when you go through school, they say, okay, well, as soon as you go and you sit down with your client, you sign the paperwork, you got your buyer representation agreement. And this is basically a document that says, as a realtor, I work for a brokerage, I can work on your behalf, we're going to work for X amount of time. You cannot work with another realtor in this time, there's issues. And you're also signing this saying, yes, I'm not working with any other realtors, I am going to work solely with you. So if you are meeting someone for the first time and you sign this document and you say after 3 weeks you start seeing houses and your personalities don't click, what do you do then? You have to you have to release that contract, or some agents might not let you out of it. So now you're stuck working with someone that you just don't jive with, and it happens.
And the one that will make you sign it right away is most likely the one that won't let you out.
Yes. And it's not to say that it is a bad thing, because it was something that was drilled into me during school, and I can see the benefits and the pros to having this signed up front, but I can also see the cons. But for me,
The pressure that comes with it. From a client perspective, it's a lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure,
Yeah.
especially if you're just starting. So I think for me personally, especially because I do work with a lot of friends and family, I already know that there's a trust there. I already know there's a good relationship. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work out in the long run as a business front, but make sure you know what you're signing, and don't just sign because you feel pressured that this person's handing you a piece of paper. You can think about it. You don't have to sign, but some agents might not show you a house without signing it. So keep that in mind.
Now, so this is called the buyer representation agreement. Sarah mentioned that a little briefly. So the details of that are, as she said, you're locking yourself into a contract with a specific realtor for a period of time. Obviously, we don't get paid until you buy a house and the house closes. So this is a way of not only protecting us and our time, because there's a lot of wasted time in real estate, but it also very clearly breaks down our duty to you.
Yes.
So there's two different ways that we can go about it. There's client or customer. And I have never in my career represented someone as a customer because we don't have half of the obligations to you as we do if we sign you as a client. I don't think we should get into the nitty gritties of that. I think whoever you pick should be explaining these relationships when you get that document. And I know personally, I generally don't do that until an actual offer is coming about. And then we'll discuss like, hey, now that we worked together for a while, are you okay signing for like a period of time until we land you the right house? Or you can do it specific to a house.
A property.
If you do have an agent that's showing you a house and you have to see this house, but the agent's saying, I'm not going to show it to you until you sign this, you can scratch out like the location being Orangeville and just put the address that you're looking at. And then that way that protects the agent and you.
And also keeping in mind too that based on that location aspect, if you're looking in Dufferin County, but then you're also looking in Simcoe and you want to use different agents, you just make sure that your paperwork lines up that way and be upfront with the realtor that you're working with. If you are working with someone else, just let them know, because we can get into a pretty nasty situation if we're not clear on the documents that you're signing and if you've signed other documents. So just be upfront. It's that trust factor.
And on the flip side to that, if you're looking in a different area all of a sudden, you still need to tell whoever you're working with in the new area that you have an agent, but we can do referrals for each other. And that way both agents are rewarded for their time.
Right.
Yeah. It's, you spend 3 months with somebody and you decide all of a sudden you're going to go somewhere else. It's nice to give that referral.
Okay. We had so much to say about these 2 points.
Yes.
Okay. The pros and cons of assuming going with the listing agent is the best route or meeting an agent at an open house.
Yeah, because I think there's a lot of advice given, maybe from older relatives or friends or whatever. Oh, just go check out the open houses, and that agent that's there can represent you, and they can you. Maybe you'll get a deal by doing that, and blah 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 blah. They're not wrong, but
They are
because there's something to be said for having your own representation. So imagine that seller has essentially hired their listing agent, and that listing agent is representing them from the get-go. If all of a sudden now that listing agent is put into a position where they're also having to extend services to a buyer client, how can you be so on the fence and forget all of the information that your seller has given you to be completely neutral, to be able to provide excellent service on both sides of the fence? It's extremely difficult.
Can it be done? Yes.
Yes. And we've done it. I think all of us have been in that position, but it's a lengthy conversation with both sides.
Yeah.
It's called multiple representation. And hey, both parties, you need to clearly understand that obviously we were in the seller relationship first.
Yeah.
We owe them a different ethical duty. And just as I was talking about on that buyer rep agreement, we have customer and we have client. You almost automatically become a customer if you use the listing agent to purchase.
Now, keeping in mind that we can, like, as a realtor, it isn't my job to tell you what to spend to buy a house. I'm never going to tell you this is what your offer should be. You need to make that decision. But you can still provide the information to them. You can still pull listings. You just can't give.
You can't guide them as much as we normally would.
Yeah, it's a very sticky line. It is very difficult. We run on a lot of ethical responsibilities, and we sort of get a little bit messy there. So it can be a little tougher there for sure.
The basic point is we wouldn't suggest going to an open house and you may fall in love with that agent and think that that's going to be great and it may work out for you. But our recommendation would be to do your research, whether you start on Google, on wherever, a referral from a friend or family member, and an interview to find the best fit for you, and take it from there.
I'm going to jump in there though. Sorry, for an open house in that case, because sometimes you might like that house, but it's not the one for you, but you really like the agent. You can start working with that agent 100% if you click with that person. Yes. Now, sometimes check who's the listing is and who's running the open house, because I've done an open house for your listing.
Right.
Doesn't necessarily mean that I have any advantage or anything like that, but I mean, we have that relationship and the trust there as professionals, but I don't know the background of your client. So maybe that works. So do your research. This is what we're trying to say, is don't just eliminate the open house, but definitely make sure that that's the right fit and that it's going to get you the best option.
Right.
And maybe they can refer an agent as well.
Right. Yeah.
Quick extra add-on point, as you had just said, friends and families. What about using your friends or families that are realtors as your realtor?
I'm all for it.
Again, pros and cons.
Pros and cons. All my friends and family, call me now.
Yes. Let's go over them. What are the pros and cons?
So it is a very emotional transaction, like I said. So you are going into a situation where you might lose on an offer, or you might feel. I've had a situation where I had a client that didn't want to call me because it was my son's birthday, and it's part of the business. It's part of, I understand that whether you're my friend or not, you're still in a business relationship. You call me at any time you need me. But I find from a client perspective, sometimes they get a little bit nervous about that and they don't want to interfere. So it's kind of hard for that sort of balance to keep your friendship and your business
I think
separate.
it's definitely, there's advantages to it for sure.
100%, yeah.
The comfort level,
Yes.
but it's something that I think before either party gets involved, there should be a very lengthy conversation about expectations.
Yes.
And keeping it
That's the
separate.
key.
Because
Yeah.
like separating, we can wear our different hats,
Mhm.
but the client can't always see the different hats.
Right.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to have difficult conversations, especially in tough competitive markets, that the clients can find it very difficult to be like, why are you, you're being a little aggressive. Okay,
Mhm.
but I need to be, because
Yes.
this is work talk now.
Yeah.
I'll put my friend hat on later
Right.
and go from there.
But at the same time, as a friend, am I going to bust my ass for you and make sure that
Oh,
you're in the best
100%.
place 100%?
But
Yes.
some might not. We would.
Yes.
But I'd bust my ass, friend or not.
How many,
Yeah.
how many times have we heard people be like, oh, I've had clients that came to me because they had a friend or family member and they shit the bed.
Right.
They
Right.
took advantage of the situation. They didn't do
We're gonna have to
their
put like a
job.
rated R.
I can say I didn't drop the F-bomb. That's a miracle.
It's coming.
It's coming. But yeah, I think that's a really important factor too. Like, just set the expectations early on
Mhm.
Yeah.
and understand that there are two different sides here.
Yep.
You may decide, you know what, like if you've got an aunt or uncle or cousin or brother or friend that does it part-time,
Mhm.
they might not be able to give you the attention that you do need
Yeah.
in a market like we're in right now.
Yeah.
So weigh the pros and cons is all.
Yeah,
Saying.
pros and cons for everything. So, all right. So I think at this point we've all decided that okay, we've got
picked
our
your
realtor, we've picked our realtor.
Us.
Us, yes, we're awesome. If you want to work with all three of us, we'll figure it out.
We all service Dufferin County, by the way.
And
surrounding areas.
New clients accepted.
Yes.
All right, so serious guys, we've got our agent. We're ready to go shopping. What is our next step? So we want to actually go out and pick houses. What do we need to know? So from a realtor perspective, we're going to ask you a ton of questions. We're going to drill you. We're going to ask you 17,000 things, and you might not actually know right in this moment. And you can always adjust as you go. This is a moving game. We're going to figure out what works best for you and what your needs are, what your wants are, and what you absolutely do not want. So not wanting something is very important for us to know.
Mhm.
Your needs are very important. Your wants are very important. And sometimes we might have to flex depending on price point. Keeping that in mind, especially as a first-time home buyer, if you're wanting the 4-bedroom house with the 2-car garage and the pool, you might not be there just yet.
Yeah.
You might have to start and eliminate a couple of those things to get in the market and make your journey up.
I just had this happen last night with a client. They started off wanting the search criteria, an auto search, we'll talk about that in a second, set for pools.
Okay.
But that really eliminated us to what's really on the market. So it
Yes.
took us going to a couple of listings for them to say, you know what, I think maybe we need to think outside the box and we'll just take that out of the criteria. We can always put an above ground pool. We're willing to
Right.
be flexible with that. Well, now that opens the door to
Right.
a lot more
A
possibilities.
lot more.
So yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So just to touch on your search point, once we find out what exactly it is that you're looking for,
Mhm.
how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, all these details you'll get, we actually provide you with a list of wants and needs, and we can go through and set up a criteria on a drip campaign. So this is going to be a recurring email that comes out to you every single day. Granted, we are still looking at the market. We're finding stuff and we're sending it to you, or you're looking yourself.
Mhm.
But these emails are going to come to you and provide you with the newest listings and any updates that have happened on them. So this is really good to also provide us feedback from these. So if you get something and it comes in, it's like, you know what, this was good, this wasn't good, I didn't like that. Provide us feedback, because we need to understand what it is that you're looking for so we can help you get down the right path.
It can also open up that expectations conversation again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of like, if everything that's being sent within, your criteria, and it's a little too small.
Mhm.
Well, your feedback to us is going to be, hey, I need a bit more square footage. And then we're going to say, well, this is what's available in your budget.
Yeah.
So we either need to be open to less square footage or push further out.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
feedback isn't hurting our feelings. They're
No.
not our houses.
No.
We're just sending you what you said you were looking for.
Yeah.
And we take it from there. It gets a learning experience start to finish.
And then back and forth. And it's fully expected that learning process is going to happen. So I know that there's been clients I've taken, we're on our second showing. Oh, I'm so sorry, but no, this isn't the one. Don't be sorry. This is just as much a learning experience for me as it is for you. And it takes time.
Yeah.
Asterisk though.
Yeah.
When we get
Yeah.
to the point of actually like you're seeing ones that you like and you want to go see them.
Yeah.
There is a fine line. We can't show you every single house.
Yes.
Can I just stress that
Yes.
please, if you're looking at the pictures and you're like, meh, it's not going to be better in person.
Yeah.
Rarely does that happen.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Unless they're like cell phone pictures.
yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
In most circumstances though, like if you don't like what you're seeing online, you're not going to like it in person. Pick ones that pique your interest right away first and keep the others as a backup if the others don't work out.
Pan out. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it can be exhausting. I usually try to limit showings, right? Like 3 to 5 houses per visit with each other. Otherwise, you have no idea what you looked at. They start getting muddled together.
Exactly. It's not that we don't want to spend all day with you. It's literally we're trying to keep you focused and not get overwhelmed by.
Like 3 is the average.
I think that's a pretty good average. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of gotten to the wayside after COVID.
Yeah.
15 in one day. What's
Oh
your
my
max?
gosh, no, I could not
No.
do that.
What's
I
your
could not.
max?
I couldn't keep them straight. To be able to advise.
Here's your list of all of the houses we're seeing today.
I think I did like 6 was my
Collated for you.
max, but that was because we're out of town and it was a bit of a drive.
So
So we did,
I probably would agree with you. Mine was about 6 too.
yeah. But even then, like it
Yeah.
was literally here's your piece of paper, take notes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously
Take
you
notes.
walk into a house and you can usually vibe off of people. When you walk into houses, guys, there are cameras. Most people have cameras outside, inside.
These days,
Try and keep your emotions to yourself.
Yeah.
Talk away from the home. Don't say, oh my God, I love it. I'm giving them everything
Yeah.
inside the home, because then that just sets the expectation and they might be able to try and come for you for more. And especially your financials. Don't talk about what you can afford.
No.
But when you walk into a home, you can usually get a vibe from somebody, whether or not they're interested in it or if they're totally checked out. Like if you go in with somebody and they're barely even looking at the room, that's probably not the one. Don't take notes. Just throw that one away.
Yeah.
But for anything that you do, like take note of like space, setup, room size. Is there anything that maybe you would have changed or you really liked about one house versus the other? It's a good way to try and keep them straight.
And can I just throw in here too, if there are any sellers or all of our first time buyers will be future sellers,
Right.
it is actually illegal to record people inside your home.
Did you
So
know
my
that?
best advice
Mhm.
would be to shut them off, please, when you know you have scheduled viewings. I
Yeah.
100%, of course, understand the want and the need to have them in there for security.
Mhm.
But that's why you hired a real estate agent to list your home on MLS, and only licensed realtors can bring people in.
Yeah.
We are there to protect your home as a seller to make sure our clients aren't stealing stuff.
Mhm.
But it's a privacy policy violation.
Mhm.
And if you happen to record a conversation about financials, it is actually a criminal offense.
Yeah.
Dun dun dun.
So
So all
please just
you,
don't do it.
all
It's
you
really
creepers
invasive.
watching on like the nests and stuff, stop.
Right.
Yes, because if that information somehow came out during a negotiation and the buyers got wind of it,
Yes.
you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Which
I
I
was gonna
haven't,
say
have we
something
even,
else, but-
I haven't heard of that actually coming into play yet. So I feel like it's still kind of in that gray area, but just to be safe, don't do it.
Yes.
It's not gray in law.
In the law,
In the
no.
eyes of the law.
But I know that like there was something that came up from our organization not too long ago.
Yeah.
That had
Yes.
said that it was a strange area.
It's gonna take that one and they're gonna make an example out of it. And you
Yeah.
don't want it to
Don't be the example.
No.
That's gonna be it.
So I guess when you walk into a house, figuring out your clients is very important as well. Like
Mhm.
you brought up a really good example. Can you?
The what?
The Van White
Oh,
experience.
the Vanna White experience. Yes.
I love this.
Are we there already?
I'm trying to remember this now about just showing.
Yeah, so if you're
walking
walking into
through?
a house and like, what is your expectation as a
Yes.
realtor, and you're wanting to
Show
show
we
somebody
had
around.
a little discussion about what our kind of etiquette is with and handling clients. And my process is to kind of let them explore, and I'm kind of trailing behind and you know, dropping tidbits of information or answering questions, or but there is an expectation sometimes that you are the Vanna White and you're supposed to know everything about the house and walk them through. Here is the bathroom, here's the primary bedroom, here is the kitchen that has been recently renovated. That's not my style. If you're looking for someone that does that, there are some agents that do that.
You could ask.
I guess.
I could do it if that's what you wanted.
I suppose, yeah.
I just a bedroom speaks for itself.
Right. I feel like it's sometimes they feel like they're stepping on your toes or something.
Yeah.
If it's like, let me in the door and see this place, you know. But we want you to be like that. This is your opportunity to explore. This is a big investment
How
you're
do you
making.
feel there? Doesn't matter how I
yes,
feel.
it doesn't matter how I feel. You're not offending me.
Asterisk.
Yes.
Just but stay together.
Yes. Do not
Don't
wander.
Yes, don't wander.
Oh,
Kind of
that's a
go
big
as-
one.
Yeah, go as a group.
Your appointment time. If you set a 10 a.m. appointment time,
Yes.
we are going to show up at 10 a.m. We're not going to show up at 10:02 and start wandering the property and go through.
No.
Especially not without your realtor. You have to be with your realtor. We are the ones carrying the insurance. We carry the obligation to be on a property. Otherwise, you're trespassing.
If you're early, which we do encourage you go early or stay a little late to check out the neighborhood,
Yes.
do not. And again, we talk about law.
Asterisks.
We're there. But like Sarah said, you cannot go on the property. It is private property until your showing time has started.
Yeah.
And once your showing time is ended, I think that's important too.
Yeah.
So if you're half an hour late for your half-hour appointment,
Yeah.
we need to reschedule.
Yeah.
You can't just show up.
No.
And in a lot of cases, you can call the agent and say, hey, we're running 15 minutes over because we're really enjoying this or whatever.
Yeah.
They're usually pretty good, but be upfront. If you're going to be late, give your realtor a heads up and say, hey, I am running late.
Yeah.
It is a courtesy call. We have schedules too.
Yeah.
And same to the agents.
Yes, if you're going to be late.
Yes, if you're going to
Tell
be
your
late,
client.
let your
I
client
think
know.
that's
Yes,
pretty-
and the other agent. That's holds the listing.
Yeah.
So legally, we can only show you the property during that time. So use your early time to check out the neighborhood. Do not walk the property. That's such a common one.
One thing when it comes to time, back the train up a second, to the scheduling of the appointment. There's some etiquette involved in that too. So sometimes, usually we require, like, you know, think of yourself as the seller and having to get your house ready. Sometimes, okay, yes, if they're out working already and they've set their house up before they've left in the morning, you can go during the day. But 2 hours notice usually is a common courtesy. Sometimes you will run into a home that is tenanted though, that requires 24-hour notice.
Yeah.
So don't be alarmed if you call your realtor and request to see a number of properties. It's up to us to then go and pull those listings and find out all those instructions. And that may kind of alter your plans in terms of viewing. So just a little etiquette point there.
Okay, your asterisk.
So keeping in mind, you
Another
want to get there
etiquette.
on time. This home is somebody's home.
Yes.
You are walking into a house that somebody lives in, and please do not use their bathroom.
Yes.
Use the bathroom before you get there. This is not an outhouse. You don't just get to come in and use the facilities.
Right.
Schedule yourself accordingly. Stop for a bathroom. A lot of the times, if you are seeing multiple houses or there's a distance, you can allocate a little bit of extra time for a Timmy's break in between seeing houses.
Yeah.
We also have to put that travel time in so that we're like, if you go into a house and we have a 30-minute appointment and you only took 10 minutes, doesn't mean you get to jump into the next one 20 minutes early because you didn't like the first one. So we have to set our schedules and we have to follow them pretty precise. So if you know that you're a person that has the smallest bladder of life, plan a little extra time in between the appointments and make sure you make those stops beforehand. When you're in a house, remember to take off your shoes. Oh, you can look in cabinets and stuff like that, but you don't need to be looking in people's dressers. You don't need to be going through their fridge and being like, oh my goodness, look at the food they eat. That doesn't come with the house.
Right.
So a little bit of courtesy. I mean, if you don't like a house, you don't have to walk in there and be like, this is so terrible. You're open to your opinion, but I think you still have to remember that you're in somebody else's home.
Yes.
And if you do decide to put an offer in and you came in and they had their cameras on and you were acting like a jerk face, I mean, you're not really
I've
setting a
had
good
clients
example.
lay on the bed and I'm like,
Oh my God.
Oh, yeah, no, that's another one, sitting on the furniture. Like, really, from an etiquette perspective, it's there for you to look at, but not to sit and explore. I understand in one aspect from a client perspective, it's like immersing yourself in the experience of the home, but there's a fine line there that
There is,
doesn't need
yeah.
to be crossed.
Especially somebody's personal bed. That's
Oh,
just,
yeah.
that's gross. to me.
Yeah.
No, not cool. Not
Yeah.
cool. I don't like
And as a realtor, I think like if your realtor says, hey, please be respectful of this, or I'm going to give you a tip, like don't wander the property until I get here. We're just doing our jobs.
Yes.
We're trying to give you like proper experience. Like we're not just trying to be a jerk face. We're just, this is what you're supposed to do.
Sometimes.
Yes.
Now, going back to your Vanna White experience or not,
Yes.
Jessica will not give you the Vanna White experience.
Sorry.
I thought it might be important too, because I often feel like, especially first-time buyers, they feel like I'm missing things sometimes because we're focused on completely different
things.
things.
I
Yes,
agree.
so
Yes,
true.
I would
So
agree.
Like you will walk in and you're looking at the overall
Space.
house, like ooh,
Cosmetically.
Yes.
already, you know, if you like the house, you're already starting to visualize your furniture in there and how you
Yes.
lay it out.
Yeah.
We are looking for electrical issues,
Mhm.
water damage
Cracks,
issues,
windows.
cracks,
Ages of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
the electrical box, the age of the furnace. So just try to be patient in that regard. And if you have a question about what we're looking at, absolutely just ask. We want you to point out things that you love. But just again, setting that expectation of differences, we will, even in the dead of winter, make you walk outside
Yes.
around the
very,
house.
It's very
Come
important to look at the
prepared.
Please
exterior.
Wear boots.
Yes.
Appropriate footwear. I've had
Yes.
people show up in slippers in the middle of
Yes.
winter. And I'm
Like,
like,
what are you doing?
guess what?
Yeah.
Because what if there is a significant foundation crack?
Yeah.
We want to know that before negotiations.
Yeah.
Yes, hopefully we're in a market where an inspection will catch something like that, but what if we're not?
Yeah.
So our job is to assume we have one visit to the property, which is your showing.
Yeah.
And we need to try to catch as much as we possibly can
In that
Yeah.
time.
to use in negotiations and to educate you about what you're buying. Because let's be honest, as a first-time buyer, you're usually not getting a brand new house.
And you're probably a little bit overwhelmed. Like I would go back to my
Oh,
first
yeah.
time buying my first house, and I was like, "Oh my god,
What
I have
color
a
was the
I'm
house
so
again? I don't
excited!"
even remember.
I'm
Yeah.
like, I have to buy all these things. I'm gonna go shopping at IKEA.
Yeah.
And then I remember moving in, and perhaps we moved too quickly, but within like the first 2 weeks, I think my furnace went, my dryer went. A month in, I had to buy a new AC. Like, and going back to it, we should have slowed down and we should have been like, okay, yes, the appliances are getting old. The HVAC is older. We should have looked at that and maybe accommodated that into the price point, or I should have been saving for the inevitable. But these are definitely things like after you move into your house, we'll talk about this in another episode, but once you
see so
move
much
in,
more.
you see more and you can't go back and do anything.
No.
Like you're 48 hours in, something dies,
That's on you.
you're
Yeah.
stuck with
Like,
it.
how many times have we shown houses that have been renovated?
Yes.
Handyman special,
The lipstick.
spit and lipstick,
Yeah.
spit and duct tape. So we are looking at that kind of stuff. Like,
Yes.
okay, I can see these tiles are laid. The tiles are beautiful. They're gorgeous tiles,
Mm-hmm.
but they were laid by like my 8-year-old son,
Yeah.
and the grout is already cracking.
Yes.
You're looking for things like that because we know cracks in the grout causes water to get down into the floorboards,
Yeah.
And
and
water
it
will go
starts-
anywhere.
right? So there's a lot of other stuff that we're looking at.
So we're not necessarily walking into a house and being like, this is so bad. We're pointing out negatives so that you're fully aware and what you're going to be walking into and taking on as a financial obligation.
Right.
So most likely from my perspective, I'm not walking in and being like, oh, this is so beautiful. I might point out some things that are nice,
I mean, sometimes.
but I typically stick to more of the, like, this is what you're going to have to prepare for and think about financially. So that's more my approach.
Yeah, our job is to kind of pull you back from the like star
Emotional.
eyes
Yeah.
Yeah.
to, okay, so this kitchen is beautiful. Is it big enough for you?
Right.
Is there enough storage space?
Yeah.
There's no dishwasher. Are you cool with that?
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
nowhere to put one in. Are
Right.
you cool with
Yeah.
washing dishes for the rest of your life?
And especially if you go into a house that's staged, like you walk into some of these houses these days and I'm like, damn, I want to live here. But like, you got to look past that. The couch doesn't stay with it. The cushions don't stay. Yes, you can make it look this beautiful yourself if you buy all these beautiful things, but furniture is very expensive. Make sure you have money for that.
Oh dear.
So I think, yeah, we hit on most of it. And I think
I think if you find a property you like, exploring the neighborhood, we touched on that. If you
Yes.
arrive a little bit earlier, you have some time, or you have another opportunity to go back and drive the neighborhood. But again, the importance of working with a local realtor that's going to know if a subdivision is going in next door within the next 5 years, or there's a school to be built, or all of these things. If it's walking distance to schools, if it's the benefits of a local agent for those particular reasons becomes very crucial.
100%, especially like, for example, near my place, Hanson's going to open up.
Yep.
And all the traffic coming out that would normally be on Veterans Way is now going to move over to my way. And I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
that is going to make it a very different neighborhood. So, and there's tons of building going in. So it's, knowing that is very important. But I think also one thing that we didn't touch on is this one's a touchy one. It's guess when you're going shopping.
Yeah.
How many people, who comes with you? My perspective, I wouldn't bring my children to go shopping for a house because I'd be distracted that my kids are jumping on the couch.
Yes.
Or I almost dropped the F-bomb there. My kids come up and the F-bomb almost came. My kids are jumping on the couch, or they're grabbing things, or they break something.
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to my children. I'm mothering. I'm not looking at the house and focusing on what I'm there for.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bring mom and dad, maybe for my follow-up, my showings. You get a couple showings usually if you schedule that into your contract.
Mm-hmm. And that it's an opportunity for you to let your agent know that you're bringing these people, to let the sellers know and get their okay that you're bringing a cluster of people through the house.
Especially in COVID, we weren't allowed to. So.
No.
Well, and no, and it's still very overwhelming.
Yeah.
As a first-time buyer, almost every single time you want your parents' opinion.
Yes.
Absolutely understandable.
Yes.
However, parents can also be mean and negative, and they bought houses when they were $200,000.
Yes. They
So
were going
it
to tell
can
you
be
all the things that are wrong. You're overspending.
very, very deflating as
Yes.
well, and suck the fun out of it.
Yes.
So general rule of thumb
Sorry,
is
parents.
decision makers.
Yeah.
Decision makers only.
Mhm.
If mom and dad need to be on the mortgage with you, bring the parent that needs to be on the mortgage
Yes.
with you, because we need to meet them. We need to see their ID. We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that they are fully involved in the process.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they're not an actual decision maker and you just value their opinion, you get opportunity for other visits to the property.
Mhm.
So hopefully you get a conditional offer. Bring dad to the inspection.
Mhm.
Sorry, Mr.
Your
Inspector.
inspector.
I'm sorry. We don't really recommend it.
That's a running real
because,
estate joke. If you're wondering why we're laughing so hard.
Again, they can be very negative. It's because as parents, you'll get this someday if you're not a parent yourself. Like, you're obviously super overprotective and you want the best for your
yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
We do get it.
Yeah.
But I've had buyers walk out bawling because parents are just tearing the place apart
Yeah.
and they can't afford anything newer.
I remember a couple of years ago, you had to actually tell the mom, like, you're no longer allowed to come anymore.
You have to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause they were just so negative to the process. And
Mhm.
yes, we're first time home buyers. We're not going to be able to get all the frills and the whistles, bells and whistles. So yeah, sometimes it's nicer just to pick something on your own and then show them after.
Mhm.
And you know what? They might be upset by it, but they'll be happy for you in the end.
Yes.
hopefully.
Yes.
But I think also, to your point, if that person is going to be on the mortgage, you need to be able to connect with them. Also, speaking with the lender, which is super important. So whenever we're going into a deal, whether you have a parent coming in or for yourself, it's super important as your realtor to be able to connect with your lender, so we understand what financial obligations you have, what you can afford, what you can't afford. We want to be able to have open communication with them. And we're not saying we need to know what's in your finances, like what's in your savings account, but we need to know what kind of steps they've taken to get that pre-approval for you.
How
And
long is the actual approval going to
yes,
take?
how much time do we have to work within this? When do we need to get this offer in by, for your point? There's a lot of different aspects that we need to be comfortable with as well, because we're representing you and putting faith to that trust factor with the other realtor. We need to understand where you're at financially and how strong your offer is going to be, especially if you're pushing your upper limit on your budget. Like if you're telling us you have XYZ, but you actually have a ton more money, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I can afford this. And we're like, well, no, you told me this number. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Having that sort of connection with the realtor or with the broker gives us a little bit more confidence.
Actually, you bring up a really good point there.
Ooh.
I don't think we put it on our list, would be budget and shopping at the top of your budget as a first-time
Mhm.
home buyer.
Yes, especially in this market that we seem to be getting back into a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's a whole conversation I feel like that you need to have with your realtor, whoever that may be, about the strategy and like expectations when it comes to negotiating and wiggle room and what a list price versus a sold price expectation is and all of these things because the market is changing so quickly.
Well, so back to our previous episode, and please, if you haven't watched it,
Yes, go back.
it is the one we sit down with mortgages with April and June,
Yeah.
and we discuss all of the information as a first-time buyer about getting your pre-approval and picking a lender.
Yeah.
One of the most important things as well is they're going to tell you what your max budget is. You're
Mhm.
approved up to 800,000.
Yes.
They're also going to have the conversation of, however, monthly payment wise, your most comfortable area is 700.
Yep.
Yes.
Please communicate that to your agent.
Yes.
If you say, yeah, we're good to go for 8, they're probably going to send you stuff that's like 825,
Mhm.
775. Like
Yeah.
we're going in and around that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you express to us that, hey, our absolute max, we cannot go a penny over 800, we prefer to be at 7, is very, very
Do you
important.
have- Yes,
information
it's
for
very
us to know.
helpful. Yeah.
100%. Also, we're going to be asking you for proof of identity. So
Mhm.
when we actually go to put in some offers, we're going to have to get your photo ID, employer, job title. There's some paperwork that we do if you get an accepted offer. It's called FinTrax. This is basically just proving that you're not
Laundering money.
laundering money, you're not an illegal person. So we do ask some pretty invasive questions. We're not asking you just because we want to find out of this information. It is mandatory from our organization and making sure that we're meeting government
Yeah.
expectations.
Like we're talking, if we'll get there in a second, if you get to an accepted offer and you have to drop off your deposit and then everything goes well and the house is on its way to closing, we need your bank account number.
Yeah, we need your bank account number, if it's checking or savings.
Yeah,
Yes.
who is on the account? So information regarding the deposit. And again, your agent should be guiding you through that and what that information is for.
Mhm.
But it is required by law from us to provide to the government.
And especially if you're receiving any sort of money from a parent or whatever for your deposit or your
We need
down
theirs
payment, we need to have their information to record that. And I believe it's anything that's less than 90 days in the account.
Mhm.
So we do need to have quite a bit of information from you. And it doesn't go, it stays secure. We have expectations from a realtor's perspective that we have to have all of our stuff secured, locked up. People don't have access to our laptops, so to speak. And it goes into our brokerage through a system that's all very secure.
Yes.
So it's all kept on file, but we're not sharing it with the world. We're doing it because
We
people
have
say
to,
we have
like,
to.
we have to. Otherwise, you could get flagged and there could be issues. So
So anything over 10,000 is flagged. Like they could be flagged and they could review.
yeah. So just be prepared that we are going to ask for that information. And if you still have more questions, I hope you do, ask your realtor.
So we have about
I was
just
just gonna
around
say time
15
check.
minutes here. So we need to
Okay.
start wrapping it up with what happens here. And then I don't think we're going to get to market stats. We might have to do another.
Quick little post maybe about that
Yeah,
at
we'll do
another
it.
time.
I think so.
Market's
Okay.
crazy.
Well, let's move on. let's imagine we've gone through that house shopping process and we found the one we would like to make an offer on. Back to that deposit point. Number one, we have to ensure that you have access to your deposit funds because that money, if your offer is accepted, needs to be delivered to the listing brokerage within 24 hours of that accepted offer. So it has to be an account that's accessible. Don't leave it sitting in your RSP and then ask that we need 48 hours because that just stirs up a lot of uneasiness from the seller and the listing
Yes.
agent as to why you don't have access to those funds.
But even if they're pulling from RSPs, it needs to be pulled 90 days in advance.
No, it doesn't.
That's what I was told from a lender just the other day.
No,
No.
it's the process of, no, it has to be in the RSP account for 90 days.
Because it's still in their name. Because I had somebody pull from their
It's
RSPs
just
not long ago.
RSPs that usually take up to 48 hours to actually transfer.
Maybe
It
there's
depends on
something
the
else
bank.
happening in that situation that I just wasn't.
Maybe they
aware
got
Maybe, yeah.
money for it.
Yeah.
Like a gift.
Maybe. Disregard.
All good, all good.
We'll look into that a little more.
It same goes for conditions. So usually when you're submitting a condition of finance, which is something we would Recommend you do. We don't know. We don't have a crystal ball, and we don't know what kind of market we're going to be getting into. But crazy COVID times, we weren't allowed any conditions, so to speak. But right now we can. So a financing condition, even though you have a pre-approval, it is advised that you put a financing condition in to allow for the approval of that specific property. Because there's all different kinds of things that the lender's going to look at in terms of that property, the age of the home, all different things. Yeah. So you want to allow that time to make sure that you're actually going to be able to get the mortgage for that specific property.
And what happens if you don't?
If you don't get the mortgage?
Yeah.
Well, then
if it falls short.
If it falls short, well, yes, if they're not going to lend you the full amount that you need, then it is on you to come up with the difference in funds. This condition usually is anywhere from 3 to 7 days. Again, the more competitive the market gets, we like to, we're requested to tighten up those timelines, but that's one thing. So make sure you have all of your stuff ready to go. Like, it literally should be a phone call to your lender. Here's the MLS listing. We've made an offer. This is how much our offer was. Here's a copy of the accepted agreement. And they'll get to work doing the approval basically for you.
And that's another reason why we want to be in contact with your lender.
Yes, this is a very crucial time to be in contact.
The faster that if we can just submit all of the paperwork in one email with the MLS listing, CC you on it, so now you have all the paperwork.
Yeah.
It saves so much more time versus you trying to
be the middleman.
Figure out.
We know exactly what they need. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess just on that note, and then when it comes to inspection, another thing, enough time. We've got to actually line up time for an inspector and for you to review the report and to accept the report. There is also an opportunity there. What happens? Okay, you've put these conditions in, we've gone past, we've got our financing approval, the inspections revealed something. Could be an opportunity to walk away if it was something large enough that you feel needed to be, but it's also another opportunity for renegotiation. So whether that's negotiating that the seller makes the repair, or you're going to get a reduction in purchase price, or yes, there's a lot of variables when it comes to this. If you were to choose to walk away over something in inspection, usually that listing agent is going to want a copy of that inspection report to say, like, why? And is this a reasonable reason to walk away?
So to that point though, like if you walk into the house and the floors were all torn out and you walked in and you saw the house like that and it was obvious, and then your inspector came in and said, oh, the floors are all mangled, that has already been considered in the list price.
Yes.
So obvious things that are wrong, you can't expect to go back and renegotiate. That should have been negotiated.
And that is the most common misconception.
Yes.
When the house is listed, everything as is that we can see as realtors has been taken into consideration when pricing the house.
Right.
So if the roof is damaged, if the floors are damaged, that's already been taken into consideration. So what Jessica's saying about finding something major, if there's mold that's been uncovered, if there's foundation issues that have been uncovered, like major things, or if the fridge is broken and you didn't know, those are things you can turn around and say, listen, we either don't want to move forward or we want to try to renegotiate the price because we're going to have to fix this and we didn't know.
Right.
Yep. Makes sense.
And if you choose to walk away, I guess we'll get to this in a second, but yes, you get your deposit back.
Yes.
That's what the condition period is for. It's like a safeguard period where you can do your due diligence.
Yep.
And then back away if you have to and still get your deposit back.
Usually we call a mutual release is signed that allows you to get your deposit refunded to you. But again, duly noted, that can take sometimes up to 2 weeks to get those funds back. So don't expect the next day to just get a check cut to you. Sometimes it's quick, sometimes it's not.
And I think also using the conditions as your scapegoat in case you change your mind, you have buyer's remorse.
No,
that's not how these work.
No,
they actually have to be legitimate reasons. Like if you have a lawyer review, the lawyer actually has to find a legitimate issue.
Yes.
Or look at it all together.
Yeah. Like you can't be like, oh, I'm going to throw in this condition of an inspection and not even get an inspection, but I have it and I'm going to pull out. That's not how it works.
No,
you actually have to do your due diligence and you have to make an actual effort. And if you don't, then you could be looking at some sort of recourse to that. Like, could the seller perhaps come back after you? Maybe.
Well, they've got your deposit. They're going to hold it hostage.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if you do put in a condition like inspection
Mhm.
and then decide you don't want one, you don't need one.
Yep.
And you can move forward with the deal and what we call waive the inspection, meaning like, well, I asked for it, but I don't want to do it, but we're still going to move forward. That's fine.
Right.
Don't recommend it, but it's fine.
I think another point on that when we're talking about conditions is the costs associated with those conditions. So say, for example, inspection, it's usually up to you then to pay for that inspection. So be prepared for those costs. That's another conversation that your agent should be having with you.
Or like well and septic. Things
Well,
like
and
those would
septic
be on you.
inspections. Yes. Yeah.
On average, like an average in the middle of the city home, you're talking $550.
Yeah.
On average.
Yeah.
For home inspection.
Yeah.
Rural wood burning fireplaces, then it starts to accumulate.
Yeah.
Could be upwards of $1,000.
Yeah.
And not every inspector can do that. So it's another conversation.
Right.
So make sure that you're doing your research and your realtor is giving you referrals on who to use.
Now, when it comes to preparing your offer, what things to negotiate over, it's not just price. So again, having an agent that before preparing that paperwork has a conversation with the listing agent and does a little investigative work and finds out why the sellers may be moving or what closing date would be preferable to them. Closing date is a big thing that can be negotiated to, offer the seller something that they would be looking for. Deposit amount is another big one. We kind of had a bit of a discussion back and forth about this, about what we recommend to clients, but
it's going to differ based on the price point you're buying, the area you're buying in. Like you go down to the city, you need a big deposit.
Yeah. They want 5% or more.
But I feel like also remembering that we're first-time home buyers, it's probably respectable to say between the 10 to 15,000 because you're probably around the $700,000.
I would say at a minimum.
Came up 15 or more.
Yeah. I think that would be at a minimum. But I think again, the stronger the deposit, the more serious you're looked at as a buyer.
Yes.
Because to walk away from 10 to 15,000 is a lot easier to do than 50,000.
Exactly.
And again, we talked about this in the financing section, but keeping that clear between what deposit and down payment means, right? Your deposit is a portion of your down payment that's credited at closing.
Yeah. It's not extra money. It's just part of your down payment that you need to have readily available.
Right. So we talked about closing date, deposit, purchase price. We can't tell you what to offer, as Sarah mentioned, but we certainly can educate you. So by providing you, we can even do like a quick little market evaluation on that specific property, comparing it to recently sold and what's currently active, and knowing kind of what market activity is doing. We can kind of give you a range of what we feel. I find, generally speaking, though, buyers are pretty educated when it comes to that. Like they've been watching, right? They've seen the activity.
Most
turnover.
cases, they walk in and say, "This is what I would spend."
Right.
But there are cases where they come in and you're like, "What should I offer?"
Yeah.
We
can't tell you.
cannot tell you what to offer.
Yeah.
We can show you the research. We can show you the comparables. We can tell you the stats of like, hey, everything's been selling at 100% of list price, meaning you should probably offer list price.
I mean, we can look back at historical numbers now, like in that bubble, and say, okay, well, these areas did well. Like we can even say that too, which is cool.
Yeah.
But we can't tell you exactly what to put.
No.
And I mean, you wouldn't really want us to, because let's say 30 days later you move in there, you're like, oh my God, I overspent. Like, I don't want you to have that.
That's why we can't.
That's why you guys keep it.
Yes. So, okay, we've basically documented your offer. Now when it comes to you signing it, your agent shouldn't just be sending you a DocuSign and telling you to just sign it and hope for the best. They should be going through, at least for your first offer, because then after that, it's essentially carbon copied. You're just changing the important parts. They should be going through that so you completely understand what you're signing. We had a big discussion about that too, because there's been a couple of cases of we are so happy to know that you trust us so much that we sign just on the dotted line, but we also don't want to take on that obligation. Like, you need to know what you're signing.
It's very enticing when you get an email and it says sign here. You just want to click it.
Yep.
Don't
Yeah.
Take
read
the time.
it.
We don't need that
And
back
make
in
sure
5
that we
minutes.
didn't make a mistake.
Exactly.
Right. That
We're
was
human.
another point.
Yeah.
We're human too. We can make typos. So
I
make
had to
sure
write
you
an
haven't.
offer in the car the other day.
Yeah.
So I'm like, please go through this thoroughly and make sure I didn't hit a bump and hit the wrong key or
Right.
something, right? Like we obviously review, but definitely best to know what you're signing.
Another thing, sorry, this can also be considered a strategy point, is the irrevocable period. So what that means is you're presenting an offer to the seller and you're making a promise that you're not essentially going to renege on your offer until a certain date. And that's essentially allowing the seller a time frame to make a decision on your offer. Now, when we get into multiple offer situations, sometimes like there is an opportunity to improve your offer. But there's strategy involved in that timeline. For example, if you know, I had this happen over the weekend, if you know that an open house is taking place on the Saturday at 1 o'clock and it's Friday and you'd like to make an offer, it's probably in your best interest to kind of put a little bit of pressure on that seller to answer to your offer before the open house, because that's opening the door for more opportunity for another offer to come in.
Is something we can decide for you and guide you on.
Yes.
I'd say like 9 times out of 10, I'll just tell my clients what we're.
This is why, and this is why.
Right.
This is why. Yeah.
Keeping in mind that we also need to make sure that your schedule is going to accommodate the timing that we're putting in. You need to be available to be able to respond to any offers or counters or
yes,
any such things.
On that note as well, we're not going to get to market stats. We're going to run short of time, but this is an actual strategy that's taking place from a listing perspective as well, where buyers are not too keen right now on having to compete if not necessary. So instead of, holding off offers for a week and asking everybody to come in at once, to still provide an opportunity for a multiple to be generated, we're seeing 24 and 48-hour irrevocables being requested on offers as a way for that listing agent to extend that timeline. So that's something as well that you need to be aware of before making an offer, and how your agent then can guide you in how to handle that.
Yep.
I guess, then it's, your offer is presented to the seller consider it. They have the opportunity to either just accept it, to counter offer, and they can change anything on that offer, or decline your offer.
Yep.
And if an offer is declined, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's it, case over. You can resubmit and do improvements and whatever. Again, that's strategy to discuss. We had covered inspection, and then we covered, if your offer is accepted, you have to deliver your deposit. Congratulations. But that note that the deposit has to be delivered within 24 hours to the listing brokerage. And we do have the ability. COVID helped us to open the doors to e-transfer, direct deposit, a little bit more different options and flexibility.
There's always also written into your offer that you do get to go back to the house.
Yes.
Usually 2 or 3 times before it closes.
Yep.
To show your parents, show your friends,
measure for furniture,
make sure they're moving.
Yep.
All that good stuff.
And then also you want to keep your last one for the day before, just to make sure everything's functional and that they haven't destroyed the house before closing. Because again, once you're closed, you can't go back to fix things after the fact. You have to do it beforehand. Have your lawyers situate all that. But speaking of lawyers,
that's our next episode. So basically
time.
At this point, your real estate agent would take all of the paperwork and forward it to your lender and forward it to who you plan to hire as your real estate lawyer. But we will cover that. Our next episode next month will be with Carey Allen from Stutz Brown Self. We've had her on the show before, but she'll be back to talk to us specifically with first-time home buyers, how to handle all that.
Yeah, what to expect at the lawyer's office on closing.
Right.
Yeah, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. We hope it was super informational. Make sure you're heading over to our YouTube page and giving us some subscribers, because we're doing
we're low over there. Show us some love.
Share.
But Instagram's fine too. We love
Instagram's
our
perfect.
Instagram feed.
Yeah, so thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. We hope it was helpful, and we will connect with you all again July 5th. And we're always available. Shoot us a message, a DM, call us individually on the Behind the Sign Canada page. Love to hear from you. And let us know how the volume was.
Yes. Hopefully it's better. Take
Thanks,
care.
everybody.
See you guys.
Have an awesome day.